I only listen when there's, when I'm not really busy with other things, or if I'm very unbusy, I can do one thing and listen to a game out of the corner of my ear.
Yeah.
We are going.
All right. We are looking at Saturn tonight. We'll try to make it pleasant because Saturn is often not very much liked. And people go, well, I better put the microphone on, huh?
Well, that might be a good idea. I was wondering why it was a little low. It was still picking up.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's abstracted today. You're off in another world somewhere, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. First sentence. His concentration, which is not without vigor, brings concrete thoughts and artistic emotions into pinpoint control for mastery and universal acclaim. Concentration is Saturn. Conjunction is Saturn. The not without vigor is obviously the Aries, because that probably is quite vigorous. Brings concrete thoughts, Mercury. Artistic emotions, Venus. Into pinpoint, the conjunction, and Saturn again. Control is definitely Saturn. Mastery is Saturn or the 10th house. And universal acclaim is the 10th house. He's famous. He's famous for his control. And now Abby said she was going to have a ton of them tonight.
Yeah. I have sentences.
A few here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Would you like to hear it?
What?
Would you like to hear it?
Yes, please.
Okay. I am faithful that my independence will bring honor and attention to my attractive and refreshing professionalism. My paradoxical imagination brings polish to my local environment.
Okay, you brought in the opposition right away. I started out with just the conjunction alone. Very good. Anybody else got one? Julie?
I'm not really here.
Okay. Well, maybe you should have some of your students at MATC write them for you.
I should teach them this instead. Then I would really learn it better.
All right. In the process of specializing for grace and neural focus in his dynamic energy to be the highest, he has diverged from his subconscious and subjectivity with uncertainty. All right. Specializing. The conjunction is a specializer and Saturn is a specializer. Grace is Venus. Neural focus is Mercury. Well, the focus is actually the conjunction. The dynamic activity is obviously Aries. To be the highest is the 10th. He has diverged, the opposition indicates divergences, from his subconscious, the 4th house, and subjectivity, the 4th house, with uncertainty. Subconscious and subjectivity both work for the moon also. And you want to use keywords if they work for both the sign and the planet, because when you double up, you're more likely to hit it on the head right off the bat. Got another one, Abby?
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty is the opposition. Yeah, you don't know which side it's going to be on. Today this side, tomorrow the next. Anybody have any guesses who it is?
What's he do?
Obviously it's an artist from the way I've been using the words.
I've been not knowing that.
He has performed here in Madison. And when he performed here in Madison, they did a special thing that they took Mills Hall and they cranked the temperature up to the highest temperature it's ever been at, because he wouldn't perform unless it was at a real high temperature. Didn't want to strain his muscles. Oh, huh?
I'm gonna go Sun Ra.
He's paradoxical, all right. Now this is Rudolf Nureyev.
Oh.
Yeah. Just exactly what you kind of thing you'd expect for that kind of poise. All right. We'll let Abby start this one off. You got one, Abby?
Yeah. I find darkness in materialism and responsibilities, but I'm extra disciplinary when connected to developing creations where I am transcendent with wisdom in establishing fellowship.
Wow. That's quite a sentence. Anybody else have one? She tries to see, I don't know if I always can work that way. See, she's got a bigger mind than I have, I think, because I take it piecemeal often. I take one piece in one sentence and another piece in another sentence. It's great if you can do it in one gigantic long sentence like that, but I usually don't have the kind of consciousness to do that, and I have to go at it a little bit at a time.
I have another sentence too.
Okay.
You want to hear it?
Yep.
Okay. Polarities. Wait. Okay. Polarities in my unrestrained individualism and withdrawals. Wait. No. Polarities in my unrestrained individualism and withdrawals. Something to my abstraction to my personality pertaining to affection for. I don't understand that sentence.
Okay.
Affection for questioning rules. Well, that's like
Yeah.
something scattered.
It's an unusual usage, but it's valid English. All right. I have real simple sentences by comparison. She lacks judgment in sometimes being small about personal possessions and sometimes going overboard with shared finances.
Tangible personal possessions.
Second house. Yeah. The tangible is Taurus, which likes things very tangible. Lack of judgment is always an affliction between Jupiter and Saturn. And if she's being small, Saturn is the small. About tangible, Taurus, personal possessions are the second house. Going overboard is Jupiter in affliction, with shared finances, which would be the eighth house. So that's only part of the story. However, because of her concentration and because use of her concentration and limitation has brought control to her faculties of genius and creativity, she will likely always have enough and more than she wants to spend. Concentration and limitation means good aspects to Saturn. She's brought control to genius, meaning the good aspects to to Neptune and Uranus, both of which are genius. You could say the genius is more the Neptune and the creativity is more the Uranus. She will likely have enough, meaning to say that Saturn in the second house doesn't always mean penury. It often means having enough, but because she's got these talents, she'll have more than she wants to spend, meaning to say that she's a personal tightwad. Anybody have any guesses?
What's she?
Martha.
She's an entertainer. She and her husband made a huge fortune in their lifetime. They were a team, but they each they each had a life before they were a team. They were both acclaimed before that.
Igor May?
No.
The 11?
What? No. I wouldn't put on Dale Evans. I'd have too many temptations to take cheap shots. This is somebody that everybody loves. Big hint. It's I Love Lucy. Yeah. All right.
So she was a tight one, huh?
Personally, yes. But they had so much money she could, they shared money. She really was big in that. All right, we're looking at number 3 here. We're looking at Saturn in Gemini this time, and it's sextile to Pluto. And Pluto's in the first house in Leo, and it's trine to Mercury in the third house. I'll do one, and then I'll let Abby do one, and then we'll just go back and forth. His view of history is intellectual and idealized or otherworldly and decidedly dark, and it reflects the grave things he sees in the world and maybe even his mean. All right? History is Saturn. Intellectual, Aries sign, especially Aquarius is likely to be intellectual. Idealized is the 11th house, tends to idealize things, or otherworldly. It tends to make things of the other world. Decidedly dark, because Saturn and Pluto in an aspect, even a positive aspect, are decidedly dark. Grave things he sees in the world, the grave part is Pluto, it's always heavy, grave. The things he sees in the world are the first house, and maybe even his mean, the mean, or the way you present yourself to the world is ruled by Pluto.
George Bush.
No.
So,
Yeah.
first house Leo was.
He doesn't have anything intellectual.
Did you hear his excuse? When he heard the news that all of the intelligence community, all the branches said they quit it 4 years ago, and that means we really got to watch him.
No, but he does have Pluto in the first house.
He does have
doesn't
Pluto.
he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I thought.
And his mean is the way he presents himself, and that's Pluto or the first house?
Yeah, the first house.
Oh, that's the first house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Abby?
It is petrifying for me to be unreliable to the general good, and I assimilate this into my will for dignified leadership, purposeful through my thoughtfulness and kindness in negotiations.
Well, I like that a lot. It isn't this man, but it's an excellent sentence. It is. It's very excellent. That had a lot of thought to it. Put it together nicely. All right. Anybody else have one? Oh, I hope that by the end of the year, everybody will make at least one sentence, just for the fun of having tried it. My second one says here, though serious, his views are likely correct, and he can communicate them with verbal perfection, with a concrete mind that focuses on what others care about. That's a decent sentence too. Sirius is the Saturn and the Pluto. They're likely to be correct because it's all involved with sextiles and trines to Mercury. He can communicate them, meaning Mercury's in the third house. Verbal perfection, the trine is a perfection, and the trine of Saturn and Mercury really do get quite perfect at things. And the concrete mind is Mercury that focuses on what others care about is Libra. I would be surprised if anybody got this one.
Edward Gibbon?
No,
What's he do?
he is a writer. Huh? No, he has another profession. He is a physician. Now that should tell you it all right there. How many writers are physicians? This is a very famous writer. Contemporary, living and writing as we speak.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I think Mark might be the only one who's probably read something by him, though, but the others might have. It's the kind of thing that Mark likes to read. Yeah, I can't get them on a roll here. I'm giving them all. It's Michael Crichton.
I knew it.
Oh, you can say it afterwards. I knew it, but unless you pull the trigger, you don't.
But I don't care.
You don't have to care. That's when the intuition works the best. Because if you've got something personally at stake, like if you've got ego at stake, then the intuition doesn't work so well. You have to not care personally for yourself. All right. This time we have Saturn in Cancer, and it's sextile the Sun and Uranus in Virgo in the 4th house. And it is trine to Neptune in Scorpio in the 5th house. So this is another person with all kinds of sextiles and trines. All right, Abby, we'll let you lead.
Her conscience is sympathetic to necessities, exaggerated sometimes by awareness, and mania with her probing nature into familial concerns. Fulfillment of her sensitivity is found in ponderous personal contributions.
Excellent sentence, and it hits the person right on the head. In fact, you hit some of the idiosyncrasies about her that are quite good. All right. She might appear mature beyond her age because of an early childhood around older people, and certainly she sees herself as old. All right, the appearances is the 1st house. Maturity would be Saturn in the 1st house. Beyond her age would be Saturn in the 1st house. Early childhood is the 1st house around older people. This is something you'll find a lot, that when Saturn's in the 1st house, you have somebody who's serious because in their whole upbringing they were with older people who tend to be more serious than younger people as parents. And she certainly sees herself as old. The Sun is sextile to Saturn, and that's the way you see yourself, and so she sees herself as old. Because she takes herself so seriously, she can draw on technical creative genius in an intellectual unconscious, and she can express deep, fascinating spiritual concepts purposefully. All right, she takes herself seriously because of the Saturn sextile the Sun. She can draw on technical creative genius. The Sun is conjoined to Uranus. Very simple sentence. In an intellectual unconscious, meaning to say that it's in the 4th house, and she's in touch with things without necessarily having to have all the knowledge about them. She has an unconscious feel for them. And she can express deep, fascinating spiritual concepts. That is, the Saturn is the deep part, the fascinating part is the Neptune, as are the spiritual concepts is Neptune, and the purposefulness is Saturn. The only person who would be likely to know this one would be Julie. It's a famous writer. Yes, and wrote nonfiction also. She was kept away from her father because he was so irresponsible. She was raised in society, high intellectual society, anything to keep her away from her father. Oh, come on, Julie.
Is it the one?
What? No. Who wrote about technical things as a woman?
Who wrote about technical things as a woman?
Yeah.
Ursula Le Guin.
No. She was Boole's buddy.
Who was buddy?
Boole.
Boole. I don't know Boole.
You don't. You don't know Boolean logic? You got to be an English PhD without knowing Boolean logic?
I read Shakespeare for the first time with you.
Any guesses, Mark? It's Mary Shelley.
Oh.
Yeah. And that really describes,
Called Frankenstein.
yeah, she's the one that wrote Frankenstein's monster. Got any more, Abby, on that? Add some after the fact. Well, we'll let you lead this one off.
Okay. By containment of the power in his perspective, manifestation is brought to his kindness and energy towards stability and commitment.
A little bit of an error there. I wouldn't have put the kindness in because the Venus is squared up. But otherwise, it's quite good, and it also hits the person on the head. Gets them very exactly. This is somebody that everybody'd like to hit on the head anyway. We're looking, all right, Saturn in Leo in the 10th, square Mars and Venus in Taurus in the 7th. I selfishly seek rulership or dominance in high places, and I'm willing to build toward it by forming whatever affiliations necessary and persisting in them even if they are insensitive and brutal. All right, the selfish is Saturn afflicted. When Saturn is afflicted, it's almost always selfish. Rulership would be Leo. Dominance would also be Leo. High places would be the 10th house. I am willing to build square by forming whatever affiliations, 7th house, necessary. Necessity is always a Saturnine keyword. Persisting, this is in fixed signs. Even if they are insensitive and brutal, the insensitive and brutality comes from the Saturn and Mars. When Saturn and Mars are afflicted with each other, it is a savage combination. Now you know the secret of why my marriage didn't work. I was a savage beast. No, I have that, but it's very, very weak. Anybody else in another sentence? Abby, got a second? Okay. Because of this, I am likely to build on a foundation of emotional insecurity and may block the very ends I seek blindly. Building is the square. Foundation is Taurus. Emotional insecurity is Venus square Saturn. So even Venus square Mars might be emotional. Saturn square Mars might indicate some insecurity. And it may block, being the square, the ends that I seek blindly, meaning to say where Saturn is where one's blind spot is. Anybody have any guesses who this is? It is a power monger. Unlucky at love, lucky at dictatorship. Who's that? Come on, a wild guess. I got to encourage you. If I'm not going to get keywords out of it, I'm going to encourage your intuition. Huh?
I'm not gonna say, no.
Okay. Mark?
Donald Trump?
No. Not living.
Not living.
Yes. In the United States and Europe, probably the most hated man in the 20th century. Hitler, yes. Adolf Hitler.
Who has what?
Saturn in Leo square to Mars and Venus in Taurus. And I think the Taurus part recoils across the whole zodiac to Scorpio because it was reputed that he had only one testicle, which reinforced his belief that he was the ancient Klingzor who used to tempt the Grail Knights because they were trying to live celibately when because Klingzor was a Grail Knight at one time, and he was a famous black magician that lived on an island in the Mediterranean, and he was famous for misleading Grail Knights, and he did that by tempting them with women, and he himself had been a Grail Knight, but he couldn't handle the sex force, so he castrated himself. And Hitler believed in this life that he was Klingsor.
Klingsor.
Klingsor, yes. Yes. You find it in Wagner's Parsifal. It's more in the European version of the Grail than it is in the British version. All right, we're at Virgo. Saturn in Virgo in the third. Opposite Uranus in Pisces in the ninth. Sextile the Sun, conjoined Pluto, conjoined Venus in Cancer in the 12th. So we've got one of those 30, 60, 90 triangles where there are a bunch of good things dealing with several bad things. I'll take one first and then I'll let Abby go. I am likely to be a person of few words carefully chosen, minimalistic and particular. And this taciturn outlook is spread to the way I see myself, the way I love, and the way I try to control everything, so that I have a deep darkness about me which could cause me large-scale problems in retreat, even though my self-concern is sincere.
That was a short sentence.
Yeah, it was a shorty, yeah. I'm likely to be a person of few words. Saturn in the third house would be a person of few words. Carefully chosen. Virgo is a very careful kind of sign. Minimalistic, because Saturn is in there with all of those aspects all together. And particular. Particular is Saturn in Virgo, very much that way. Taciturnity is the Saturn again in Virgo, not wanting to say something, is spread to the way I see myself. The spreading is the sextile. That's the way we broaden, is through the sextile. The way I see myself is Saturn sextile the Sun. The way I love is Saturn sextile to Venus. It's a sparing kind of love that this person has. And the way I try to control everything, and that is the Saturn sextile Pluto. Both of them are control, and that's mega control. So that I have a deep darkness, Saturn and Pluto, which could cause me serious, Saturn and Pluto again, large-scale problems, being the 12th house, in retreat being the 12th house, even though my self-concern is both Pluto and Saturn being in an aspect to the Sun, sincere. So that it's very sincere. This, you'll never guess who this is from the sentences or the disposition. Abby?
This person is faithful with consistency in practical matters, but can be indecisive and improvisational relating to her spiritual aspirations. She has universalized conceptions, immovable, devoted to her true dreaming of great unknowns.
All right. That's the way she would describe herself. The world probably wouldn't, but that's the way she would, and that's valid. Because sometimes the world doesn't see it the way you see it yourself. Well, very often you think you're doing things well, and it's not the case. My anxiety about petty practical things causes me to try ingenious things, theoretical and concrete, which may seem incongruous, irregular, and even dreamy to my own practical outlook on life. All right. Anxiety about petty practical things. We're looking at the afflicted side of Saturn this time. The petty practical things are, the petty is the Virgo, and the practical is the third house. Causes me to try ingenious things. That is, the Uranus brings out the ingenuity. theoretical and concrete, which would be the 9th house and the 3rd house, which may seem incongruous, Uranus being afflicted and irregular as Uranus afflicted, and even dreamy to my own practical outlook on life, meaning to say that she's internally divided between the practical part with Saturn and the other part seems dreamy to it. This person is more fair for a different set of aspects. This person is more noted for a different set of things. More noted for an opposition of the moon in Aquarius in the 8th house opposite to Neptune in Leo in the 2nd house, which did land her into the 12th house.
Say that again.
She's famous, more famous for her moon in Uranus, in Aquarius in the 8th house opposite to Neptune in Leo in the 2nd house. And those things landed her in the 12th house. And she was very Saturnine about the way she dealt with things.
Mary Lincoln?
No, she just died.
She just died.
Yeah, she just died, I think within the last 3 or 4 months.
Oh, the woman who owned the apartments in New York,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever her name was?
Leona Helmsley, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She was really careful, but she had that 12th house destiny. She got greedy. It's a very kind of strange kind of spiritual greed she had.
And I said 12th house, I didn't know if you meant the hospital or if you meant
Yeah.
the clinker.
The clinker, yeah. All right. We are at the second half here. Saturn in Libra in the 7th. Sextile Venus in Sagittarius in the 9th. And sextile Neptune in Leo in the 6th. Ooh, this has got a really positive person, huh? It's a male. My first one sentence reads, my strict attitudes about fairness may limit my opportunities for and my attitudes about sharing and partnership, but my love is deep, patient, and as lofty and idealistic as I can manage. Meaning to say that I can manage, there's a little bit of reserve. Strict attitudes about fairness would be Saturn in Libra. Wherever Saturn is, it limits the opportunities of the 7th house and the attitudes of Libra, and the 7th house is sharing and partnership. That's what the 7th is. But my love is deep. Venus is sextile to Saturn, patient, Venus sextile Saturn, and lofty because Venus is in the 9th house, and idealistic is Sagittarius. So it's as much that way as she can manage because Saturn always has a little bit of holdback, or he has a little bit of holdback. What do you have, Ab?
He is expedient with his diplomacy to the public, open enjoyment with expansion on his highest values, and his appreciation of idealistic self-mastery are qualities applied well in his occupation.
Yes, I would agree. It describes him. It doesn't describe his brash side, but we don't have, this person has Mars in Aries in the 1st house, so there's a brash side. But the part of the character that you're describing, you describe with very good accuracy. All right. My austere attitudes about the attitudes and forms of justice parlay into a sincere, heartfelt, practical, workable spiritual utility. Saturn always makes austerity, and again, because it's both in the sign, 7th house and the 7th sign, that's why I use the attitudes and forms of justice. The 7th house is legal matters and things like that. The parlaying is the sextile, which spreads it around or builds on what there was before. Sincere is Leo, heartfelt is Leo. The practical is the 6th house, and workable spiritual utility. Workable is the 6th house. Spiritual utility is also the 6th house, but the sextile is also a utile aspect. This is somebody else who just died within the last 3 months. More known for the brashness than for this side. I know a friend of this guy's. In fact, he even supported the friend.
What did he do?
He was a writer.
It wasn't the guy who committed suicide, was it?
I don't know if he committed suicide or not. He said he could whoop Muhammad Ali. Julie knows who it is. You got it.
No, I can't remember his name.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Good.
Oh, no, he didn't commit suicide. I was
Okay.
thinking of a different writer.
Okay. All right. This one didn't. This one didn't just die. She's with us, and I don't know if that's a blessing or not. I don't know enough about her to say. This time we have Saturn in Scorpio in the 10th house. Another famous one here again. Square to Venus and the Sun in Aquarius in the 2nd house. Abby, you better start out. I might be too hard on this person.
Okay. She is ambitious with her influence to those above her, which can be fundamental in her comfort and I amness with her socialistic approach to responsibility.
No, I like it. Except that she doesn't have anyone above her. She's gotten to the point that she's above everyone. Huh?
I could try this one.
Okay.
I intensely seek rulership over other people, which blocks my ability to love responsibly and let me see, I don't know how to do the sun all of a sudden. Okay, that's all I got.
Okay. Good. You're getting the fever. Yeah.
I'd like to do it.
Yes. All right, I made 3 sentences this time, short ones though. Control of basic desires, loving sentiments, and transcendent feelings is important. Control is Saturn. Basic desires is Scorpio.
Wait.
We didn't find out who that was.
Oh, we didn't, wait, I got the wrong, all right. A controlled passion and deep psychological curiosity allow me to materialize an ambition relentlessly, and it could mean riches and wide wealth. Controlled passion is Saturn in Scorpio. Deep psychological curiosity is the same, although Aquarius also has a lot of curiosity, so they work together in that. Could materialize, 2nd house, and ambition, 10th house, relentlessly. This is all in fixed signs, and it could mean riches and wide wealth, riches being the 2nd house, and because it's all Aquarius things there, that would be the widening of it. However, my cool indifference, Aquarius, and scientific stance, Aquarius, might block my ability to love, the Saturn being the Venus being squared by Saturn, and have a measure of appreciation, making my goals as hateful to me as they are demanding, meaning to say that the ambition doesn't allow her time to stop and smell the roses. Making my goals hateful would be Saturn in the 10th house afflicted. Demanding, Scorpio is very demanding, and Saturn in Scorpio is extremely demanding. Anybody have any guess? That sure describes her. I've never watched her. She's a television person. I've never watched her, but this is the whole feel I get about her.
It's not Oprah.
Yes.
It is
I was just gonna
Oprah.
say Oprah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you said top and she's in television, that Oprah is the top one.
Yeah.
So she has Venus square Saturn.
Yeah.
So she has a sort of social love.
Yeah. Well, she's unfulfilled. At least if the gossip rags are right, she's like she doesn't have anything going with Stedman or anybody. I think she almost has to buy him or something like that, and then she has to buy his silence, which is like this combination also. So, I've never seen her show. Have any of you?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Oh yeah. You have, Abby? Okay. Like it?
Not really. Too many commercials.
Oh, okay.
Bullshit.
I have a friend who is a friend of hers, Bobby Stevens' wife from Detroit. She's a Unity minister, and she and Oprah get together. This one nobody's ever going to guess. This one is Saturn in Sagittarius in the 5th. And it's conjoined the moon in Sagittarius in the 5th, and it's sextile to Venus in Aquarius in the 7th, and it's opposite to Uranus in Gemini in the 11th. So we got a sextile trine situation here, and there's a mistake in here.
Okay.
You have to cross that whole last part out. The opposition. Oh, there with this. Yeah, the sun is not opposite to Uranus in the 7th. Uh-oh. Everything's going to come out funny now.
We don't have the sun on here.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, but Saturn is conjoined to the sun, isn't it?
Saturn is conjoined to the moon.
Saturn, or conjoined to the moon. All right. All right. The moon and Saturn are not opposite Uranus.
Okay.
That means I looked at the combination wrong. All right, let's see how it works out, whether it is right. Control of basic desires, loving sentiments, and transcendent feeling is important. The control of basic desires is true. The moon is basic desires. Loving sentiments is Uranus in Aquarius. That's controlled by the sextile, but the control of transcendent feelings is not. That part of the sentence is not true. All right, Abby, you have one?
Yeah. His dignified, expansive expression and attention to feelings of enthusiasm with personal contributions magnify his captivation of opportunity in complementation. Fulfillment could be provided for in his creativity and variety and joint expression.
Yeah, see, we got the same opposition to Uranus parts in there. It happens to work out with his life, but it isn't with the horoscope. It isn't because of that in astrology. It's because there are other aspects to Uranus that are very strong. All right. Both loftiness and cold, concentrated control of my imagination reflect into a broad, cool, aesthetic creativity in the fine arts. Loftiness is Sagittarius, and cold, concentrated control is the conjunction. The cold part is the Saturn. The concentration is the Saturn and the conjunction, and the control of Saturn of the imagination is of the moon. That reflects, which is the sextile, into a broad, cool, aesthetic. The broad and cool is Aquarius, aesthetic is the Venus, and the creativity is Venus. In the fine arts is the 7th house. Now, this part the last sentence doesn't work then, because the last sentence is all about Uranus. Though control is the origin of exotic, free-form art for art's sake creative adventures, may escape from it. that comes from another thing rather than the Saturn opposite Uranus. What happens in here is there's an exact opposition of Mercury to Uranus between the 5th and the 11th house. Nobody'd ever guess who this is. It's,
What did he do?
he was an artist,
Painter?
a painter, yes.
God, cool aesthetic. What century?
19th. He was part of the, he was actually in the early 20th century also. He was a friend of Picasso's.
Gauguin?
No, Matisse.
Matisse.
Yes. Yeah. All right, sorry for the error. I still need a lap-sitting secretary, I guess. All right, here we go. Saturn in Capricorn in the 12th. Conjoined to Mars in Capricorn in the 12th. Conjoined to Jupiter in Capricorn in the 1st. This is all just one conjunction, and the conjunction is quite strong. And it goes right across the ascendant. And the difference between the Mars and the ascendant is less than 1/2 degree, and Jupiter and the ascendant is just about 10 minutes, so it's a really strong conjunction. All right, Abby.
She can show maturity by dedicated restriction to deepen constructive recognition of social problems. With piercing idealism, she may compartmentalize direct experiences.
It's actually better than my sentences, because you hit the person, description of the person on the head much better than mine. I just went with straight keywords, and I didn't try to load it toward who this person was, because this is a person I happen to dislike. Even though she's dead, I guess it's this, my dislike gets cooled off. But you hit that person. That's excellent. And you've got one for every one this time, didn't you?
I didn't do the 12th one.
Ah! Okay. We are here. My exterior might seem noble, distinguished, and dignified, but just beneath the surface is a one-pointed savage drive and ambition which could be my undoing. The exterior would be the ascendant and first house. Noble and distinguished. The noble part would be Jupiter. The distinguished would be Capricorn, and Jupiter in Capricorn is dignified. But just beneath the surface, which means to say just above the ascendant, is a one-pointed concentration, that is, with Saturn. Savage drive. Savage is the Saturn conjoined Mars. And ambition, which is Saturn, which could be my undoing, which is the 12th house. It's a reasonable sentence, and it does describe a lot of her, but not as well as Abby's.
Question.
Yes.
You said just beneath the surface,
Yeah.
above the ascendant.
Above the ascendant, yeah.
Just above the ascendant.
Because this is everything right, this is the surface right here, and this is everything above the surface, and this is things that are hidden behind the scenes. And so something just on the other side of the ascendant, it's just beneath the surface, meaning to say that sometime in life it's going to pop out when it progresses across the ascendant. And this is close enough to the ascendant that even the slow-moving planets are going to pop across the ascendant, and they're going to come up out of the surface. It's a use of words that doesn't go with your mechanical picturing of things. I understand that.
Well, there's got to be, that's one thing I guess that hasn't been ever explained in any of the astrology as far as above the surface or below the surface. I mean,
Yeah.
considering that the
Yeah,
ascendant
yes,
and descendant.
Yes,
are there
yes.
above.
If you're taking this as the horizon, this is above the surface. But if you're talking about conscious versus unconscious, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. All right. I understand your concern.
Okay.
All right. All right. I try to look at universal problems in a dispassionate manner, but competition and desire for broad personal esteem might skew my judgment to worldly ends. universal problems is the 12th house. Dispassionate is Saturn, but competition and desire are both Mars. Broad personal esteem would be Jupiter in the 1st house. Might skew the judgment toward worldly ends. The worldly ends are the earthy Capricornian types of things. Nobody knows this one.
Hence,
What,
A scientist.
a scientist.
he or she?
She.
Uh,
What kind of science?
Anthropologist.
oh,
Margaret Mead?
Yeah, that's Margaret Mead.
This is Margaret Mead.
This is Margaret Mead. Yeah. Abby, would you read your sentence again and just listen to how well it describes her life?
She can show maturity by dedicated restriction to deepen constructive recognition of social problems. With piercing idealism, she may compartmentalize direct experiences.
Anthropologist.
That's it. And that's just what she did.
Experiences.
Yeah. Excellent.
Ambition is her undoing. You don't like that.
You can pay me off later for lauding you. All right. Coming down to the wire here, we are at number 11. And we're looking at Saturn in Aquarius and the 7th house. And it's square to Pluto in Taurus and the 10th house. And it's opposite to Uranus in Leo in the 1st house. And it's trine to the Sun, conjoined Venus in Libra in the 4th house. Very busy Saturn. This is one of the most famous Saturnine people that history has produced. On the surface, an almost romantically bright and loving appearance, behind which lurks a mammoth darkness and blackness that blindly seeks fame and public recognition. The surface is the 1st house. Romantically bright would be Uranus in Leo in the 1st house. And loving would be the, where are we here? The square of Uranus to Venus. And the square of Uranus to the Sun. That blindly seeks fame is the Pluto in the 10th house, which is blindly, and mammoth darkness is Pluto square to Saturn. So this is a really huge darkness. The fact that it's in fixed signs makes it mammoth. The fact that both Saturn and Pluto are involved in it makes it a hugely dark kind of thing. That blindly seeks fame and public recognition. The public recognition would be Saturn in the 7th house, whereas the fame would be the 10th house. Usually when there are squares between 10th house and 7th house, there's scandal because it's a public thing and a notorious thing. Abby, you have one? Last one you got, huh?
Yeah. Respect for freedom and commitment can be obstructive to his insistence on stability of rank, but polarizing to his originality and compelling personal inclinations. He may find satisfaction and comfort with his achievements of perfection in conclusions.
Excellent. I think, again, you have described this person in a way that the world knows him it's very clear. Your intuition is you're tuning in on the person well. So it's not just a exercise in putting words together. It's an exercise in realizing that there's a real person behind the horoscope, and that when you put the words together, that if you've got that person in your consciousness, your intuition will bring you to the right words. I think you're going to do very well as an astrologer. All right. Indifferently using partners to construct an access to material power and position constructs a quirky personality capable of giving or taking energy from others according to a regal whim. I never got to the trines to the sun. Indifferently using partners, Saturn afflicted in Aquarius is indifference. To construct the square, material power is the Pluto in Taurus. And position, which is the 10th house, makes a quirky personality, is everything coming back to Uranus in the 1st house. Capable of giving or taking energy, the energy being Leo. The Saturn is, can either take it in or push it out. I mean, the Uranus can either take it in or push it out. According to a regal whim, we're looking at Uranus in Leo, which is the regal whim. I didn't do a sentence for the trine to Sun, which is quite strong, and the trine to Venus, because this person started out as a very loving person, but ended up being just the opposite.
Very fiery personality?
Very romantic personality. Julie probably knows him as a literary figure. I know him as an occult figure more than a literary figure. Anybody guess?
Century?
19th.
The guy from the Golden Dawn?
Yep,
Can't think of his name.
yep. Aleister Crowley. Yes. This is a, yeah, he also has a Neptune in the 10th house. Quite an interesting chart. All right, we're at the last one. Oh, and boo-hoo, Julie doesn't have one. I mean, Abby doesn't have one. Saturn in Pisces and the 4th house. Conjunct to the moon in Pisces and the 4th house. And sextile to Neptune in Taurus in the 6th house. So it's a conjunction sextile combination. All right. All right. She has every aspect of imagination under close control for practical spiritual purpose and seeking insight into hidden things. So does the trine to Venus.
Or Neptune?
Yeah, there's also a trine. See, I made an error in there. There's a trine to Venus. I was looking for that. It's trine to Venus in Cancer and the 8th house. Every aspect of the imagination, the 3 imagination planets are Moon, Neptune, and Venus. And all of them being in aspect with Saturn indicates that she has a control of everything that has to do with the imagination. Practical spiritual purpose would be Neptune and Taurus in the 6th house. And seeking insight into hidden things would be the 4th and 8th houses where the Saturn, Moon, and the Venus are. With penetrating emotional focus, she can understand feminine motivation in herself and in the problems which arise between others, especially love problems. And she is spiritually practiced in seeing how others function psychologically, which she will use for material ends. What? Penetrating emotional focus is Saturn conjoined to the moon. She can understand feminine motivation. Moon and Venus are the 2 poles of feminine motivation. She can understand them in herself and in the problems which arise between others. The problems which arise between others is the 8th house, and the problems in herself are the 4th house. especially love problems because of the Taurus qualities and because of the Venus qualities. She is spiritually practiced. Neptune in the 6th house indicates practicing spiritual things, actually putting them to use. On how others function psychologically, the psychological part is the Neptune. And with the sextile trine, she's practiced in understanding how they will work, which she will use for material ends. Neptune is in an earth sign, and that tends to use spiritual things for material ends. Any guesses who it is?
What'd she do?
She was a spy. A very,
Hari?
that's the horoscope of Mata Hari. There's another very different side to the personality, but that didn't work on what we were working. Here's the list of the people and the assignment for next time. Next time will be our last meeting, and I will have some syllabi for next semester's worth.
What is the second one?
What?
Oh, I think I have it.
16.
Here.
And when do you go to the airport?
What?
When do you go to the airport?
On Monday morning, the 17th, I should be there around 4:30 or 4:45.
Okay.
And I get to Quito, Ecuador at 11 at night.
Airport.
We'll talk before then.